At 88, Bill Cosby is a man surrounded by controversy, shadows, and decades of complicated legacy. But now, a bombshell revelation has emerged. His final conversation with Malcolm-Jamal Warner, the young man who once played his TV son and grew into someone who saw more than most realized. Cosby's voice trembled as he recounted their last talk, intimate, cryptic, and filled with unspoken tension. He knew too much, Cosby said, leaving many to wonder what truths Malcolm uncovered before his untimely departure. This wasn't just a goodbye. It was a moment heavy with secrets, regret, and a sense that some things were never meant to be heard. Until now. The moment the news broke, a shocking silence behind prison walls. The news came in like a lightning bolt, sudden, jarring, and devastating. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, beloved actor, director, poet, and musician, was dead at 54. For most of the world, it was an unexpected tragedy. But for one man, locked away behind the cold, echoing walls of SCI Phoenix Prison, the moment hit like a death sentence of its own. Bill Cosby, once a revered cultural icon and father figure to millions through his portrayal of Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable on The Cosby Show, was reportedly sitting in his cell, leafing through a binder of legal documents, when a corrections officer delivered the news. According to sources familiar with the situation, Cosby froze. His face drained of color. The words, "Malcolm-Jamal Warner found dead," seemed to strip the air from the room. "He just stared," said an inmate who witnessed the moment. Then he whispered, "No, no, not Theo," like he couldn't believe it was real. Within moments, guards were rushing in. Cosby clutched his chest and collapsed into his chair. He was quickly taken to the infirmary under close medical watch. Official statements labeled the event a stress-induced fainting episode. But insiders claim it was much more than that. It was the collapse of a man confronted not just with grief, but with decades of unresolved emotion. A bond forged in fame, the father and son. America watched grow. From the very beginning of The Cosby Show in 1984, the connection between Cosby and Warner transcended the screen. Warner, then just 14 years old, was thrust into the limelight as Theo Huxtable, the awkward, lovable teen son of Cliff and Claire Huxtable. Cosby took him under his wing immediately. It wasn't just mentorship, it was guardianship. Veteran crew members recalled how Cosby became almost obsessively protective of Warner. He would tweak scripts to give Theo more spotlight, offer life advice between takes, and regularly pull him aside to talk about discipline, integrity, and staying grounded. "He was always reminding Malcolm to stay clean, stay sharp," said one former producer. "It wasn't just about acting. He saw Malcolm as a legacy." But what began as mentorship slowly deepened into something more paternal. Cosby, who often blurred the lines between fiction and reality, would refer to Warner as "my son" off-screen. Warner, in turn, viewed Cosby with reverence, sometimes calling him Pop in jest. Their relationship was deeply emotional, forged in long hours on set, shared meals in Cosby's dressing room, and the unique pressure of carrying black excellence on their shoulders in an industry dominated by whiteness. Silence speaks, the rift that grew in the shadows. As Warner matured, his identity evolved. He explored music, directing, and poetry. He was no longer just Theo. He was Malcolm, a multifaceted artist navigating life and legacy. Yet, as Cosby's legal battles emerged in the 2000s and exploded into public scandal by 2015, Warner did something few expected. He went silent. Unlike Felicia Rashad, who defended Cosby vocally, or Lisa Bonet, who distanced herself with quiet disdain, Warner neither condemned nor supported him publicly. In interviews, he deflected questions with lines like, "It's complicated," or "I have nothing to add." That silence, according to those close to Cosby, was deafening. He could take the hate from strangers, but the silence from Malcolm, that cut deep, said a longtime Cosby associate. It's been reported that Cosby, even during his incarceration, would ask about Warner. He reportedly drafted a heartfelt letter he never sent. In that letter, sources say, he expressed longing, regret, and the desire to reconcile, something that now may never happen. A death that broke the father figure. Cosby's reaction to Warner's death wasn't just physical, it was emotional devastation. After being escorted to the infirmary, he reportedly repeated the same phrase over and over. "He was my son. He was my son." One prison staff member recalled seeing Cosby later that evening, sitting quietly in his cell, staring at a faded photo from the Cosby Show set. "It's the only time I've seen him like that," the staffer said. He wasn't angry or sad. He looked empty. The grief seemed to pull the curtain back on a man who had spent years hiding behind arrogance, denial, and court defenses. Warner's death exposed something raw, an unspoken bond that had frayed, and a final goodbye that never happened. Regina King and Malcolm. A love story etched in silence. Parallel to Cosby's grief was a heartbreak of a different kind. Regina King's. Regina and Malcolm had a relationship that began publicly in the early 2000s, but quietly rooted itself in a decades-long history. They first met as teens in the 1980s, both rising stars in Black Hollywood. She was filming 227. He was America's favorite Big Brother. Years later, when they officially started dating, it was seen as a soulful match. He adored her son, Ian. She championed his music. They were private but palpable, often seen together at award shows and charity events. Their love was low-key but real. In 2013, they broke up. No public scandal, no press tour, just silence. Regina later reflected on it briefly, telling Oprah, "Sometimes love isn't enough. Timing matters." But those close to both suggest the love never died. There were whispers of reconnection around 2021. Mutual friends claimed they had begun texting again. If true, that makes the loss all the more tragic. A grief multiplied. Regina's second devastating loss. When Regina lost her son, Ian Alexander Jr., to suicide in 2022, the world watched as she retreated into a quiet, dignified mourning. Now losing Malcolm, her former partner, her emotional anchor, has reopened wounds that hadn't yet healed. She didn't react like an ex. She reacted like someone who had lost part of her soul, a friend said. Regina reportedly collapsed when she heard the news. Her only public acknowledgement? A black and white photo of Malcolm posted to Instagram with the words, "I'm shattered forever." A journal, a letter, and a mystery. What really happened to Malcolm? Warner's death was initially ruled an accidental drowning. He was found face down in shallow water at a private retreat in Southern California, a place he had often used to reflect, write, and escape the weight of fame. But questions quickly surfaced. Friends said he had been unusually quiet in recent months. He pulled out of a major primetime project just weeks before. He wasn't returning calls. When he did, he sounded distracted. A personal journal was discovered among his belongings. Though its full contents remain private, early reports suggest it contained deeply emotional entries, hints of depression, burnout, and unresolved grief. Some speculate he was battling hidden health issues, including heart problems. Others wonder if he had spiraled into a mental health crisis. The toxicology report remains pending. The legacy he leaves. More than just Theo Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just Theo Huxtable. He was a poet, a bass guitarist, a Grammy-winning spoken word artist, a director who quietly shaped Black television, a mentor to many, and a symbol of what it means to carry the weight of a cultural icon. He navigated life post-fame with dignity, even as the industry failed to give him the same opportunities it gave white peers. He took the limited space black male actors were offered and expanded it with brilliance and depth. Hollywood reacts. A tidal wave of grief. The tributes were immediate. Felicia Rashad, who played his TV mom, wrote, "This world was lucky to have him. I was blessed to call him my son on and off the screen." Raven Simone, tearful on Instagram Live, said, "He looked out for me when I was just a kid. I listened to him. I'm broken." Tempest Bledsoe shared an old photo with the caption, "We laughed until we cried, and now I'm crying for real." Even Cosby, largely silent in recent years, issued a tribute through his legal team. "Malcolm was my son. This is a loss beyond words." A letter left behind. Malcolm's final words. Perhaps the most haunting part of this story is an unconfirmed but widely circulated quote from a handwritten letter Malcolm reportedly left behind. Found among his personal effects, it read, "If I leave this world tomorrow, know that I loved hard, maybe too hard. Tell Regina, I'm sorry for all the silence. She deserved more. Always." Whether this note is authenticated or not, it echoes a sentiment that fans and friends feel deeply. That Malcolm's silence was never apathy. It was weight. The weight of expectations, of fame, of identity. Final reflections. Honoring a light, now gone. Malcolm-Jamal Warner's passing is more than a moment of sorrow. It's a profound reflection on the hidden tolls of fame, the fragility of relationships once thought unshakable, and the silent struggles so many endure behind closed doors. For decades, Warner was not just a fixture on television screens. He was a symbol of pride, hope, and possibility, especially for Black America. As the beloved Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, he wasn't just acting. He was embodying the dreams and complexities of a generation of young Black boys who rarely saw themselves represented with such nuance, intelligence, and heart. To many, Warner was a son, not only to his own family, but to Bill Cosby, who mentored him on and off screen during the early years of his career. Their relationship mirrored the paternal dynamic that made The Cosby Show such a cultural cornerstone. Over time, the legacy of that show became complicated by scandal, yet Malcolm's authenticity and integrity always stood apart. He carried himself with quiet dignity, navigating a complicated industry while remaining grounded in his craft. He was also deeply connected on a personal level. His longtime relationship with actress Regina King was not just tabloid material. It was an example of two talented, driven artists trying to create something real amidst the chaos of public life. Even after they parted ways, the love and respect they held for one another remained palpable. Their story was one of humanity, vulnerability, and shared experience. To his castmates, Warner was a brother. Together, they created not just a show, but a movement, a blueprint for how Black families could be portrayed with joy, complexity, and care. Their bond wasn't confined to the screen. It extended into real life, into friendships and lifelong connections that outlived their years in front of the camera. For those who worked with him, he was not just a colleague, but a trusted confidant, a gentle force, and a fierce talent. And to the millions who grew up watching him, Malcolm was a mirror, a reflection of what could be achieved, a reminder that intelligence, sensitivity, and self-respect could coexist in young Black men. His influence shaped not only how audiences viewed Black youth, but how Black youth viewed themselves. Now, as we grapple with the shock of his loss, let this moment be more than a memorial. Let it be a call to listen more deeply, to check in on those we assume are doing fine, and to acknowledge that strength often hides deep pain. Let us remember that fame does not insulate one from struggle, and that behind even the brightest smiles, there can be battles no one sees. Rest in power, Malcolm-Jamal Warner. Your legacy is not just in the roles you played, but in the lives you touched. Your light does not dim. It lives on in every heart you helped heal, every mind you inspired, and every soul who found hope in your journey.